I feel you. I've been on the same journey to figure out what are these skills, because I know what it feels like to be missing each other and missing communication and loving someone so much and knowing that they love me. And it's just like we're just missing, we're just trying so hard to connect. And ultimately, you mentioned just loving someone for who they are and just feeling safe in that. And isn't that what we all want? Is just like, I know that's what I want. I want someone to like know me deeply and just know the good and the bad and just be like, I love you no matter what. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Eri Kardos. She's a friend and an internationally acclaimed bestselling author. She's a TEDx speaker, an accomplished love and relationship coach. And I've had the pleasure to experience Eri in person, doing retreats together. I've seen her really speak and feel her. And I am always just blown away with someone that's very authentic from the heart. And I've seen her with her partner for many years. And to me, that is the best testament, because I feel like she not just talks about these things, I've seen her live them in such a real way. And knowing her partner, Jamin, they have a beautiful relationship. Their kids are amazing. It's inspiring to watch them navigate some things that sometimes feel really difficult, and they just really navigate it in ways that are really impressive with the communication. And Eri, I just want to start and just say thank you for being here. And thank you for being a light in my life. And thank you for being someone that inspires me and can be a friend and with that, and I can learn from you. And the first question is, what is your story that brought you to be someone that focuses on relationships? Why is this important to you?
Well, that answer could take the full hour. So I'll try to give it a short version. I would say that my whole life I've been really drawn to how do relationships work. And in my childhood, my parents taught marriage classes at our church. So it's always been something in my field of like, what is this thing? How does it work? I ended up after quite an adventure. I joined the Air Force ROTC on a dare, and I thought I was going to be a doctor and a pilot. And then life changed, and I ended up deciding to leave the Air Force and study sexual psychology instead. And that was so my jam. I loved it. And then life continued. I had lots of real world experiences that showed me a lot about relationships and connection and intimacy. And this is so fascinating. And I still was like, but how can I do something more business focused? And so I ended up doing leadership development at Amazon. And while I was at Amazon.com working with my executives, I just discovered there was this deep sense of loneliness, whether people were single and they were lonely, or they were in marriages or partnerships that were really struggling and they were feeling lonely. And so with consent, I started really working with my executives in the whole picture and looking at their home life as well as what was happening in the office. And what I found is that when people came to work with a newfound sense of who they were in relationship and in communication, they had better focus, better drive. They were able to have this ripple effect in their teams that had a huge impact on the organization. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. If I can focus on the bedroom and have an impact on the boardroom, that's what I want to do. That's how my heart fought. And so I ended up choosing to leave Amazon and write a best-selling book and continue to coach executives from Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, Boeing, and beyond. And it's been quite an incredible journey just watching how really powerful leaders aren't just powerful in their careers, but at home too, and how they show up with their loved ones, how they communicate. And so that has been just a huge piece of my journey. And then after that, that's when I met my husband. And you mentioned Jamin already. Jamin Patel is absolutely incredible. I love him so much. And we have grown wow, we've grown so much together. And even though I had all these amazing tools when I met him, I've had to learn even more amazing tools to survive and thrive in our partnership and parenting and all the things that come with that, and being a traveling family for so long. We're on the road for, several months out of every year as an entire family on speaking tour. So we've just navigated some really interesting spaces that would honestly destroy a lot of partnerships. And so through this, it's really been a testament to like the tools work, and it's okay that we didn't learn them. Like, I don't think anyone I know really grew up with super perfect, healthy, efficient tools for communication and connection in relationships as adults and are playing it out perfectly, right? And so really just leading to this idea that none of us learned the perfect model when we were younger. It's not our fault. And now we get to shift that and really look at what is it like to unlearn the stuff we learned as kids and relearn love now. And that is really what my passion is about, is helping people, no matter what you do for your career or what your passion is or where you live in the world or what your cultural background is, how can you relearn love so you can have the love that you desire?
I love that. And I know you talk a lot about relearning love. If someone needs to do that, what are the steps to kind of go through that? If they didn't have those models or they didn't have those skills, what do they have to go through? What is that journey?
Yeah, great question. First of all, it's admitting that you don't know, and that's okay, and choosing to learn. And I think that's a huge barrier for a lot of people, honestly, as like a starting point. I think a lot of people, there's this like social pressure that you're supposed to already be good at love and relationships. And I see this all the time of like, um, there's almost a sense of shame if you're not good at it. I tell people all the time, if I tell you, "Hey, Joe, I'm gonna start a company. I hired a business coach." Uh, yeah, you'd be like, "Yeah, Eri, that's awesome. You're gonna learn so quickly. You're gonna learn from their mistakes. You're gonna make money faster. It's gonna be great." And if I said, "Hey, Joe, I'm gonna learn how to play tennis," you'd say, "That's so cool, Ari. Like, you're going to learn the proper form so you don't hurt your shoulder. You don't have to go back and correct it from the beginning, like years later, and fix what you've been screwing up for so long. You'll be playing better faster. You'll be playing more professional players faster, higher level, and that makes sense." And then if I say, "Joe, I hired a relationship coach or a therapist," most people are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Things must be really screwed up." And like, where did this come from? Why is there such a taboo around learning this thing that honestly keeps everybody up at night? At some point in time, we're all up thinking about the person we're pining after or the person we had the argument with or, whatever that struggle is. We just don't know how to like say things the right way or what did they mean by that or how can I not take things so personally? So I think before you even get into the steps of how do you relearn love, you have to first come to this place of it's okay to not know this. And it's okay to want to get support. And it's okay to want to learn all these tools so that life can be very different. And you have to choose to shift out of these old patterns and into new practices. And that is so challenging for a lot of people. So once you get to that place where you're like, okay, maybe it's okay for me to get some support and learn this. And by the way, you've heard me say this before, Joe, but I love to ask people like, how many happy, healthy, long-term couples do you actually know? Like not celebrities, but do you actually know? And you were in a classroom and you got to see the answer. And 95% of every room I've taught in, minus one room, I think, has been between 0 and 3 couples that they know, that everybody
Yeah.
knows. That
Yeah.
between 0 and 3 couples that each person knows. It's wild, right?
Yeah.
And yet we have this pressure. We think that we're alone in this lack of knowledge. And we're like, okay, we have to be good at it naturally. And we can't tell anybody we're getting support and we can't go to learn it. So it's okay. This is common. It's all right. So once you get to that point, we're like, okay, I see that this is really, I'm not alone in this. Then come the 4 C's. And I'll just go over them very briefly. There's a video on my website that walks people through it a little more in depth. But the first C is to get curious. And I think that curiosity is, not everybody has curiosity or knows how to be curious. It's like when you feel that friction point, when things just aren't smooth in your relationship, when there's that one topic that keeps triggering you, we can get really curious of like, how can we shift this? And not everyone gets curious. I know lots of couples, especially in corporate world, who are very comfortable going to work, going to dinner, watching Netflix and going to sleep. And that level of relationship is okay for them. I call it the meh relationship as like kind of autopilot. But anybody who's listening to this, I already know that's not you. So there's something more there, which is great. So then we're going to get curious. Once we get curious about the sticky points and what else is possible, then we move into the next C, which is cultivating knowledge. When we cultivate knowledge, it's very cerebral. We're really learning the tools and the tricks that work for people. And here's the thing. Love is not a fluffy subject anymore. Love and relationships, not fluffy. This is a science. Yes, it's an art and a science, but it's a science. And we have so much research. We know it actually works. So all we have to do is learn the tools that work. That's it. And find the right people to support us in that journey. Just because somebody is a coach or a therapist doesn't mean they're good at it, or it doesn't mean that they're the right fit for you. So you have to really find the research-based people who are changing lives and are able to really connect with you and where you're at in your journey. So we go through this whole second step of like learn, 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 and learn. And we move to the third C, which is to change. Change means take it from just up here. A lot of people get stuck in the cultivating knowledge part. Like I am a self-proclaimed personal development junkie. So I could live in self-help books and listening to the podcast. And, it's like, that's really fun.
Yeah.
The hard part, and then oftentimes less fun part, is the changing part, where we're bringing it from up here and down into our actual way of being, into our bodies, into our hearts, into our patterns. And we're being held accountable and we're sticking to it. And we're even when it's hard, even when it's like, oh, I want to do the thing I've been doing for decades. I want to fight the way I used to fight. I want to feel the way I'm used to feeling. I want to, whatever my tantrum is. Instead, it's like, all right, I'm going to choose to do the hard work and see what's possible when I learn a new way of being. Once I have learned that new way and I'm actually using it, comes the final C. But let me tell you, in my marriage, when I met Jamin, I was already a relationship coach. And I remember saying, okay, well, if you're going to date me, you need to learn these 3 main tools. And I taught him 3 main tools. I remember I showed it to him. We did a little practicing. But for the life of me, he would not use them in real life. He's like, Eri, who talks like this? And it was kind of amusing and really annoying also. And then one day, he was flying in from Vegas. I'm in Seattle at the time. We were on the phone talking. I don't even know what the topic was. I just remembered I got super triggered. And we started going down this rabbit hole of trauma responses, right? And I'm like putting up all my defenses. I'm like, I want to fight you. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I couldn't pull myself out of it. And then Jamin was like, oh, wait a minute. I think I have a tool for this. And he used the tool. He chose to use the tool. And in a moment, everything switched. It was like a light bulb went on. And all my defenses melted. And I could just feel my exposed underbelly. And I remember just starting to cry. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I just really miss you. I'm really lonely.
Oh.
Went from kill you when you get home to like, I really miss you. Come home. Or when he got home, I could hear him coming to the door. And instead of like avoiding him, I ran to him. And we're in this embrace. And I remember him saying, babe, why doesn't everyone talk like that? And I was like, yeah, why don't we? If we just learned, life would be so much easier. We would be so much more connected. We would understand each other so much more. So when that change actually happened, was in the system, we don't just let it go by and say, cool, we did it. We actually pause and we celebrate. So that's the final C, is the celebration piece. And it's so important for integrating it into our systems and letting it land as this is our new pattern. We are not going back to the decades of repeating the old junk that we learned from our parents and society, and they learned from their parents and society, right? We are changing, making a intergenerational change right now. And when that happened, we have very specific ways that we celebrate and that we teach our clients to celebrate. But one of the really easy things you can do just to begin with is to just find something that feels really good that breaks the mold for you. And we decided to go out to dinner to a new restaurant, and we told them ahead of time that we were celebrating. Pro tip, if you tell people you're celebrating at a restaurant, you may get a free dessert. And we got a free dessert. We laughed so hard. We were so happy with like, wow, we really shifted something. This is huge, not just for us individually, but as a couple and as a family, right? If this is what we're modeling for our children, this is incredible. So I just, for us, that thing that happened wasn't just communication; it was also how we're handling conflict, and it's so important that we do that well, especially in front of our kids. And so this is just what I really believe in is when we go through these 4 C's, when we get curious, we cultivate knowledge, we make the change, and then we celebrate. And we do so, create an environment where both people feel safe to be themselves and free to be themselves. This is where true it's really truly safe and free to be yourself, to be authentically you and still be loved, and for your partner to be authentically themselves and still be loved. And this doesn't have to happen only when you're in a relationship. Like if you're not in a partnership right now, you can begin learning these and practicing these things with your friend, with your child, with a parent, like whoever you're close with. These things still are in our system that we need to relearn from a bigger picture, and then they really get put to the test when you're with a beloved. So there's how you relearn love, Joe.
I love that. And I love how I love frameworks. So, putting it into
I
steps that are
will.
understandable and easy to remember is great. And I'm so curious,
Yeah.
what was the tool that he finally used that was so useful? Like it's like a
It when
tease.
I know it's totally a tease, but I save that one for my private clients. So sorry.
Uh,
If you want to know
okay,
more,
okay.
message me. I'll tell you more. But
Message.
there are a few things that I think are just critical for super healthy, happy, long-term relationships, and that's one of them.
Beautiful. I also have been. I mean, I feel you. I've been on the same journey to figure out what are these skills because I know what it feels like to
Yeah.
be missing each other and not missing communication and loving someone so much and knowing that they love me. And it's just like we're just missing, we're just trying so hard to connect and love and ultimately you mentioned just loving someone for their for who they are and just feeling safe in that. And isn't that what we all want? Is just like I know that's what I want. I want someone to like know me deeply and just know the good and the bad and just be like, I love you no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think that's the ultimate or sort of the ultimate goal that we have in relationships. And so, yeah, okay, so we have your super secret skill that we can't share. Is there any skills that
I'm
you found
sorry.
really practical that you can share? Don't be sorry.
Yeah.
This is like, if that's your secret sauce, come and we want people to come and work with you. We want people and for those watching, I do a lot of interviews with people that are relationship experts. And I want to say that Eri is someone that I go to when I need help because I really trust her. But is there anything that you can share that are skills that you feel that people need that are gonna help up level them?
Oh gosh, so many. So many. I'm trying to think of like what is a really great starting point. Uh, I feel like so much of people's beginning points is just understanding that what they experience is I don't know if I like the word normal, but normal. It's common.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I like to begin with just telling people that there is let me give you a different framework for how to think about maybe 2 frameworks of things to think about. One is that there's 3 phases to every relationship. And this comes from one of my heroes. His name is Terry Real, and he's an amazing therapist, and he says the 3 phases are harmony, disharmony, and repair. And we just lose sight of this idea that, relationships aren't supposed to be like a Disney movie. It's not like you find your prince or princess charming and ride off into the sunset. They actually require work and fun and a commitment to choosing both, right? And I'm like, we're going to invest in this and we're going to invest in having fun together and playing together. And the couples that I know that are really like rocking it, they're in harmony, everything's great. And then they can sense when the disharmony is coming and they choose either to follow it and get into repair quickly, or they sometimes just choose, we're not going to go into disharmony. We don't have to have that fight. We know that we're almost looking for picking a fight because we need some sort of other attention. And we're used to doing the tantrum. Most of us do tantrums when we want some love and attention instead of just asking for what we need and want. So instead of saying, okay, well, like, it looks like we're going to go into disharmony, let's choose to tune into, is there something deeper that needs to happen? Do you just want to go cuddle? Do we need to like talk about what's on your heart? What's present here instead of going that route first? If they go into disharmony, then they have tools to move out of disharmony so fast to get into repair. And they're actually using these repair tools that make such a huge difference. And once they've done the repair, then they get back into harmony and they do everything possible to sustain that. So just know that it is probably more comfortable or known to you to be in discomfort and to be in disharmony than it is for you to be in harmony. For most people, they're like, they say they want harmony, but they actually feel more comfortable in disharmony. So just knowing that that's out there and saying, no, we're going to stay here. We like being happy. We like feeling the peace. We like feeling the flow and the ease. This is great. Is huge. So just begin to think about, like, in your day to day. And there's a really wonderful book that I used to require all my clients, whether it was business coaching or career coaching or life coaching or relationship coaching. Like, I want everyone to read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And in that, he just talks about staying in this zone of genius and, how you sometimes would get triggered to go out of that place of, feeling really good and into the place of being triggered because you're so used to that. And it's like, what if we choose not to do that? So just having this awareness, my invitations from me are like your homework. So if you choose to accept one of my first invitations to you is to just move through this next week looking for, when do you choose disharmony in your life? When are you choosing to pick the fight or to be unhappy or to find a negative story that's there instead of choosing to just be happy and peaceful and content? And I think that so many people just get lost in that. So again, is before I throw tools at people, I really like to just begin with awareness, because most people don't even have the awareness of what is possible and what's currently happening. If you don't have that, it's really hard to get started. So yeah, let me pause there and say, how is this landing for you and what you've experienced, Joe?
I mean, absolutely. There's many times when you're looking for, you get hurt. And so you want the other person to know that you're hurt. So you retract, uh, this weekend, I was with my love and we're at an event and, uh, she wanted to give me space because I was facilitating. There was lots of people around, and she disappeared for 3 hours, and I couldn't find her. I was literally
Oh,
walking around in circles for a while, and it was like, no, I want to. And I just really, and after the first hour, it's like, okay, cool. You're doing your thing. You're talking to people, socializing. And I love that. Like, I don't feel like I need to be attached at the hip. And, but after about 3 hours, I was like, actually, like concerned. I'm like, I
yeah.
don't see her anywheres in this space. I've walked around many times. Like, did something happen? And then your mind starts to spin. And
Yeah.
I realized, and then when I finally found her, I realized like, I was withdrawn and I was hurt. And I was like, why, a little upset that, like, why didn't you just communicate that? And she's like, well, I just wanted to give you space and I wanted to show you that I'm not clingy and that, I'm independent. And it was so sweet, right? It was so
Yeah.
sweet for her to approach it that way. And the intention was there. And so it was like a communication. I communicated like, that, hey, I'm not upset. You didn't do anything wrong. I appreciate the intention here. And my preference would be just let me know and maybe ask me, do I want space? Because in that particular case, I didn't want 3 hours of space. I was feeling a little lonely and disconnected, and I just want to spend time with her. And,
Yeah.
and it was a really good lesson. And, maybe one of the questions I have for you is, in those moments that we do feel that hurt or we feel that disconnection and we feel that coming to disharmony, and I didn't want to be separated. I didn't want to be in disharmony, but I felt myself like, hey, and expressed that, hey, I want to let you know, I want to be in connection with you. I want to come back to love, but I'm feeling closed and I might need a little time to warm back up. And she's like, "What do you need?" And she's like, "Do you need like kisses and hugs?" And I'm like, "Actually, I just need you to kind of walk with me and just hold me for a little bit and know I'm coming back, but I'm not quite there yet." And, a curious question I have for you is there tools to sort of come back to love faster? Like when
Yeah.
you do feel that shut down?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I'm just gonna go ahead and teach you one that I don't usually share on podcasts, but you're special, Joe. You're special.
Oh, you know how to make me feel special.
So yeah, there's so much. I can just feel the tenderness from each of you and the great intentions of connection and really trying to take care of each other in that moment. And also it just hitting old wounds, right? For both of you, I'm guessing. Yeah, there's something there where she really was trying to show you that she's not clingy, and I put that in quotes, but I mean, like, that was important to her, right? And I don't know if
Yeah.
it's something that was important to you that you expressed at some point in time, I but it was something that felt important to her to show, right? And then for you is like, that wasn't what you were concerned about and what you wanted to happen. And, um, I wanna share 2 things, one before we get to the when you're in pain, but before we get there, let me back up and just say, when we have these thoughts, like she had this thought of, "This is how I can take care of Joe," right? I I
Mhm.
I will stay away from Joe and show I'm not clingy and give him space. I'll give him space. And when she had that thought, yes, it'd been great if she communicated with you and could check in, decide if that worked for you. But at that time, it was a great learning lesson. She had a thought and she believed the thought. And so if you're familiar with Byron Katie's The Work, I love it so much. If you're not, I'm
Mhm.
just going to give you a summary. But The Work is a series of 4 incredible questions that really help you question the thoughts you're having, because she had a thought and she believed the thought and then she acted on the thought. So she had a thought of, I will give Joe space and show I'm not clingy, and or I need to give him space and show I'm not clingy. So the first question is it true? Yes or no? And
Mhm.
maybe it's a little bit of yes, maybe it's a little bit of no. Second question is it absolutely true? And no alternate universe could that not be true? The answer is always no. So always no, always. So, we don't know that Joe needed space, right? So, okay, when I believe that thought, who am I? Is the third question. When I believe that thought, who am I? How do I behave? And so when she believed that thought, she left. She went and gave you space.
Yeah.
And she was in her own thing around not being clingy. And the fourth question is who would I be without that thought? So if she didn't believe that thought, or she didn't have a thought, she would probably come to you and just check in or even share, "Hey, I'm having this thought. Is it true?" And then she can ask you directly as your partner, right? "Is this true?" And then you can clarify. But if she's just believing and acting on a thought, it really creates the scenario that you guys played out, right? And so if she hadn't believed that thought, she might think another story like, "Oh, Joe loves connection, and he probably wants me nearby to see what he's doing and be around when he finishes." Who knows? There's many different ways that this could be told as a story. We're always creating stories. So in the beginning, before even anything happens, when you have those thoughts, check in with your partner first and just saying, is this true? How is this landing for you? Is that helpful? What do you actually need? And it might be true. And then, if you were like, yeah, babe, space sounds awesome.
And man,
Let's meet at your clock. You're right. Cool. Now we're on the same page as a team. And that's very different. All right. And things will happen like this where they play out and it just hurts. And now you're both in your own little like ouchie spot. And she may not be in the ouchie spot, but seeing you in the ouchie may trigger something in her to also be in the ouchie
mhm,
spot. And I think when this happens, there's a tool that I love, 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 love. This is the one I don't share on podcasts. So here we go. But it's actually, dun, dun, dun. This is
meditation.
actually taken from, again, from my like, there are two people I want to be when I grow up. One is Esther Perel and one is Terry Real. They are my role models and heroes. And Terry Real has this really amazing tool called the feedback wheel. And I do a little modified version of it, slightly modified. But the first thing is you invite your partner into this discussion, right? Like, hey, would you be available for a little check-in? And then the second thing we do is if they say yes, and they have to consent to the yes, like they can give you your full presence. And if not right now, then find a time when you can. Then we're going to look at what is the objective truth. Like if there was a security camera watching what happened and you're trying to say each of these steps in 1 to 2 sentences, ideally, it's not a long process. It's like, hey, I finished my talk and you weren't there. I couldn't find you for 3 hours. The third step is to say, what's the story you made of it? What's the meaning you were creating behind it? The story that I made of it was that you didn't really care about me, that I wasn't a priority for you, um, that I'm not worth communicating about your life to, whatever the stories are that you're making up, right? The next step is to share what are your feelings? And you don't need to like go into the why, just what are the feelings and what is the somatic or the body experience? Oh, I felt really abandoned and not cared for and disappointed and lonely. And I noticed like my chest got really heavy and contracted and my throat is kind of sore and my stomach hurts. Okay. And the last step is what do you need? And it's not like what do you need for the future? Like I need you to never ever leave me ever again. Or for the past uh like just going back and like wish you hadn't done that. Like what do you need right now in this moment from your partner? And you had this beautiful clarity in that moment. You needed to just have her continue to walk next to you and be there as you were coming back online. Maybe it's an apology. Maybe it's taking self-responsibility for something. I'm just saying, yeah, I can. A part of me understands how much this would hurt you, and I'm really sorry about that. That wasn't my intention. I love the line that my husband and I use all the time, which is, "If I were you, I'd feel that way too." It's pretty much it's always true because if I was them and I'm not them, if I was them in some alternate universe with their life experiences, of course I would feel that way. And there's just something that's really comforting to hear that our experience is valid. And it doesn't have to match their experience. And it doesn't mean that one has to be right and the other person has to be wrong. Or it's not like her experience, what she was experiencing at that moment that she wasn't with you, was any less valid than your experience. You both are valid. Let each other's stories and experiences be valid and love each other in that place. It's okay to have different stories and different feelings about it. It's all good. We just want to feel seen, heard, and loved. And that's the big piece that most of us were missing as kids on a regular basis, especially when there was anger or pain or sadness or loneliness. We didn't get this piece where we really feel seen, heard, and loved and get to ask for what we need. Maybe you need a cuddle. Maybe you need an apology. Maybe you need some space. Maybe you just need to be heard. Maybe after all of that, then you have the possibility of being curious about their experience. And you can say, and I need to be curious about what was happening on your side. Now you can hear them because you feel heard. That's where the real magic comes in is you feel so seen, heard and loved and safe that you now have the capacity to take in other possible stories and experiences and you can find what is more of like the we truth. Like, what is the truth that happened between both of you, and how were you both really just trying to take care of each other? And it was just a miscommunication or a mismatch, which is 99% of the time. We call it being in the sand. We paint a picture of, imagine there's a sandbox on the ground, and then there's a bench right here. And the sandbox is usually where the kids play, right? And the bench is where the adults sit. And so imagine Damon and I are sitting in the bench, and we're just, we're ease, flow, connection, everything's great. And then something will happen. And one of us will get triggered. And when we get triggered, it's like we're leaving our healthy self and we're being thrown into the sandbox and reverting back into our wounded inner child self, right? And this is where we go into the 4 trauma responses of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn/fix, right? And it's in this, we have all these responses to it. And when you're in a trauma response, which is very common, it's going to happen, we cannot hear each other. We are having our tantrum in the sandbox. And what I see happen for most couples is there's oftentimes a pattern of one person gets triggered, and then because that person is in the sandbox and triggered, the other person on the bench who was fine now takes it really personally what they're saying and decides that they're going to jump in the sandbox too. So then they get triggered, and now there's 2 hurt, wounded inner children in the sandbox throwing sand and screaming with no adult supervision, right? And it's like, it's working. So we joke because our therapist will literally call us out and she'll be like, who's in the sandbox? And there's sometimes we're both like raising our hand, or we're like, we're both in the sandbox. And she's like, all right, choose who's going to be in the sandbox first. And we have developed the knowledge and the skills, which took time and being called out on our BS and our patterns by somebody who was an outside observer and could like hold us in love and be like, okay, you're going to learn how to pull yourself out of the sandbox enough to sit on the bench and really hold space until that person calms down, and then you can switch. But you can't both be in the sandbox at the same time. That's it. So both of us had to learn, when we're in the sandbox, how do we be in the sandbox, have all of our emotions, but not make it about the other person, not blame, shame, or gaslight each other. And then, and I'm on the bench, how do I not take everything so darn personally? How do I get to just hold space and love and compassion as if, if it was some random kid in a sandbox at a park crying, I'd be like, oh, that kid just needs a hug. Oh, but it's my husband, and I'm like, that jerk is throwing sand in my dirt. I'm gonna go in and fight him. So it's an art. It's an art. And I promise you can get to the point where you can decide like, okay, go ahead. I'm gonna get on the bench first, and then I'm going into the sandbox after you, which is so cool. Thank you. And I just want to add one more thing. Some people like really get like they get angry, like I don't want to have to be on the bench first, right? Or like, why should I be on the bench? Like they're like, I'm on tantrum right now. But I want to give you a little like insider tip. It's like when the other person feels seen, heard, and loved, and they finish their time in the sandbox, and you see their bodies change, right? Their eyes change, how they're holding themselves change. Everything just relaxes. When they truly feel seen, heard, and loved, they relax. And when that happens, you have such a greater chance of being heard. Better than you ever had if you were in the sandbox or they were in the sandbox. And so it's like there is also a little bit of an advantage of learning how to be on the bench first, because it takes a lot of skill to hold it. And there's a greater chance that you will be truly heard when it's your turn, because they're going to feel so much more safety and trust already and chill in their own nervous system that they'll be able to receive you in ways that it's just not possible otherwise. So even if you do it for selfish reasons, you will be heard better if you stay on the bench first. Then it's still learning this new way and really seeing that this is the fastest way to reconnection, and teamwork. I'm going to challenge you on that one. I'm going to say it's both. It's an art and a science. The science is you and I both do the exact steps that we needed to have, right? Like even if we didn't use the exact same tool name, both of what we just walked through were the exact same steps. So there is a science for what the steps are, but there's an art to how you embody it. Well, if you are listening to this show, now is the best time to reach out. Um, there's that. I think a lot of people miss the opportunity to work with people like you and me, Joe, because they wait too long. They're like, I'll wait until it gets to this point, and usually this point is the word divorce, or it's like there's no other option left. And I really want to encourage people to think about the idea that this is a skill that I'm gonna bet good money you didn't learn. You didn't learn as a child, at least. And so learning the art and science of love, relationships, communication, this is a time now, if you're ready, if you're feeling like, okay, this is exciting to me, and I can see how it helped me be a better parent, a better partner, a better colleague, better friend, then now is the time to really lean into that and find whoever is the right fit for you, whether it's me, whether it's you, Joe, you do incredible work in the world, right? And like your passion, communication, and connection is so evident. You've got amazing resources. But if it's something like, wow, I like what Eri is saying and I want to connect, great. Go to relearnlove.com and send me a little message on there. Go to Instagram with Coach Eri Kardos, send me a message on there. I love moving everybody into my WhatsApp. I absolutely adore communicating in WhatsApp still. I happen to be a talker. And so I like to send voice notes to people. It feels much more personal to me than just random text messages. And I have many different ways to support people, whether it's reading my best-selling book or listening to the audiobook. There's getting into my singles program or doing private coaching with me. And there's a single or a person who's in a relationship. There's lots of different opportunities. And for some folks who are like, I want to just like learn on my own, great. I have an amazing course called Clash to Calm around navigating conflict. And this month, I have a new class being released very soon. And the class that I teach all over the world is normally called Relearn Love. It's going to be called the Game of Love. And it's really awesome. Now people can do it at home and it's like $17. So easy way to get started. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jeff.